Tech family, you have overwhelmingly asked me to recommend the best budget laptop, and I listen to what you want. So today, we're going to do just that. I'm Josh, and I buy and review a lot of laptops and talk tech from the perspective of what it's like to actually own and use these devices. These videos take a long time to make, so if after watching you'd like to show your appreciation, make sure to hit that subscribe button, the thumbs up, and the notification bell. It would mean a lot to me. I'm going to take a systematic approach to finding the best budget laptop. First, I'm going to do a comprehensive scan of all available laptops across all manufacturers that are in this price range and meet my criteria, which I'm going to cover in a moment. Second, once I've narrowed down the list to just those eligible laptops, I'm going to take a deep look at the reviews of them to further cull the list if there are any gating issues that other people are finding. Then, once we have a very small number of laptops left, I'm going to ask you to vote in the comments below as to which you'd like me to get into review first. Don't forget to invite your friends, family, and pets to the channel if you'd like them to vote on a particular laptop too. And lastly, I'm going to purchase the best laptops I found and review them thoroughly myself to eventually crown an overall winner of the best budget laptop. Please note, this is going to be a multi-part video. As I post new videos in this series, I'll put links to them in the description below. With that out of the way, let's go through what I'm looking for in a budget laptop. For this type of laptop, you want to get the most out of your money. A decent price for a solidly built machine with powerful enough components that will last you a good amount of time. Something that is perfect for casual web browsing, watching Netflix and YouTube, using office applications, and great for students like someone learning to code. Bonus points if the laptop is powerful enough for some light gaming and video editing. I'll certainly be highlighting those laptops that I find that can do this. I'm only going to look at new laptops as I want to recommend ones that you can buy yourself. If I recommend a laptop at a price that I found secondhand on Craigslist, by the time you see this video, the laptop may be unavailable, so that's no good. Price. It seems like most people requesting this video are focused on the $500 to $800 US price range, so that's what I'll be targeting. Bonus points if I can find a great budget laptop for closer to $500, but I will allow myself to go right up to the $800 mark. Coupons are allowed from manufacturers that basically always have coupons available, such as Dell. I'm going to allow upgrades and customization of the laptop so long as the customization can be done by the manufacturer and the price after customization is less than $800 US. Some people may be uncomfortable upgrading by themselves. In terms of specs, I'll be looking for at least a 4-core 8-thread processor, 8GB of RAM, and a 256GB SSD. I believe this is the minimum specs to provide you with solid longevity. I'm aiming for this machine to be comfortably able to handle common tasks for at least 5 years. Also, I'm going to try to get a laptop that either has RAM in dual channel configuration or can be upgraded to in the future, as laptops with RAM in dual channel perform noticeably better than those with single. For the screen, I'm going to narrow my search to laptops with a 14 or 15-inch display. I feel that this is the sweet spot for balancing portability with productivity. I personally find 13-inch screens too small as a primary laptop. They are great if you have a desktop or a larger laptop at home, but if you don't, I really think you should get at least a 14-inch screen. Please note, many manufacturers of budget laptops equip their models with very bad screens, low-resolution TN panels. You are going to be looking at this laptop screen a lot, and I will not recommend a laptop with a bad panel. Therefore, I'm going to be looking for laptops with a minimum of 1920 by 1080 resolution IPS-type panels for better color reproduction and viewing angles, and 300 nits or higher of brightness. As mentioned, I want this laptop to be portable, especially as a good option for students, so I'm going to try to keep weight to around 4 pounds or less. Since this is a recommendation for what will most likely be the only laptop you have, I want to ensure the webcam is in a decent place so it's usable. A good keyboard and trackpad are also very important. Lastly, I'm going to avoid laptops with Chrome OS, Windows S Mode, or other cut-down operating systems. I'd like this laptop to be able to perform the full range of tasks. For example, you can't run a high-end software development environment on these systems. Now, please temper your expectations. Unless you buy secondhand, which I'm not doing in this video, you are not going to get a 4K display in this price range, and you are not going to get high-end graphics for playing AAA games or producing 4K content. Well, what are we waiting for? We've got a lot to do. Come on, let's head over and start searching. All right, so I'm at the computer right now, and what you can see in front of you is this Excel sheet that I put together earlier, where I went through every laptop manufacturer and online store to find laptops in the price range. Then I bumped them up against the criteria I talked to you about earlier. Now, the way to read this Excel sheet is the different laptops are listed in rows, and their various criteria are listed in columns. Now, in column M, I'm summarizing whether I would recommend this laptop or not. Red means there's a significant gating issue and I wouldn't recommend the laptop. Yellow means it doesn't meet a couple of the criteria, and green means it mostly meets the criteria. So let's jump straight into the first one with the Dells. Here we are, we're going to look at the Dell Inspiron 3000 series first. And I've opened up here the 14-inch version, and as I scroll down, you're going to quickly see that the screen here is really bad. So here it is, here's the screen, it's a 14-inch panel, 1366 by 768. This is really low resolution. This is just not a good screen at all. Things are going to look quite pixelated. I wouldn't recommend this. And then when we jump across to the 15-inch laptop, you're going to see the same problem here. It also doesn't have a good screen. So if I scroll down to the display, you're seeing here 1366 by 768 again. So big problem here. Let's jump to the next Dell. So now we're going up the range to the 5000 series. So this is the 14-inch laptop here. And when I flick back to my Excel, let's follow it along. So the 5000 series here, the 5493, you're going to see here it doesn't have that IPS panel. It's a WVA display, which isn't as good a display. So that's going to be a problem there. So now let's take a look at the 5000 series, the 15-inch version. So when I come across here, what we're going to see is this one does say it is an IPS panel. So this one could be a viable laptop to get, right? So here it is here. See, it says IPS panel 1920. Now, when we look at the money that we can spend, so for say $699, we can get this 4-core 8-thread processor, the i5 from the 10th generation, 8 gig of RAM, 256 gig SSD. So this is the first one I think that is viable. Now, the reason I didn't mark it in green here is because I couldn't determine how bright the display was. And when we're going to look at the next model up, the 7000 series in a second, it only has 300 nits of brightness. So it really does worry me about how bright this screen is in the 5000 series. So with that said, let's take a look at the 7000 series. So the only model that we could afford in the 7000 series, which is their highest end Inspiron model, is the 14-inch version. So you'll see that the base model is $849. But Dell has coupons on all the time, and I found a coupon that can bring it down within our price range, I think to $799. So for $799, you're getting a Intel 10th gen processor, the i5 as I mentioned before, 4 cores, 8 threads, and you're getting 8 gigs of RAM with a 256 gig SSD. Now this is a very light laptop at only 2.4 pounds, the 14-inch display, and when you scroll down, it does have a 1920 by 1080 resolution, which is good, and it has 300 nits of brightness, which is the minimum that I would recommend. This is not the brightest screen, of course not. Most new screens in high-end laptops right now are 400 to 500 nits of brightness, but it meets the minimum. And this is the first laptop in the list that I think I could recommend. So I did try to find some reviews of this laptop just to see what people were saying, but to be honest, I couldn't find a proper test of the screen. That being said, in some of the reviews, they did mention it was a bit dim, and in previous versions of the 7000 series that I'd seen from, say, Best Buy, I found the screens in the 7000 series to be quite dim. So even though this is the first laptop that I would say meets the criteria and is worth buying, I am a little bit worried about the screen. Now we're looking at the 15-inch version from the Inspiron 7000 range. And what you can see here is it starts at $799, and hopefully you can get some coupons to reduce the price further. Now, as we scroll down, what you're going to see is it uses the 9th generation processor, the i5-9300H. This processor, even though it still has 4 cores and 8 threads, should be faster than the other processors we've looked at so far because it takes up to 45 watts of power. Now, you've got 8 gig of RAM, unfortunately it's only single channel mode, you've got a 256 gig SSD, and as we scroll down, what you're going to see here is it does have that 1920 by 1080 screen. What worries me a little bit about this laptop, similar to the one before, is it doesn't list how bright the display is. So even though the one before at least lists 300 nits of brightness, I don't know how bright this one is at all, and I just couldn't find out. So now we're going to take a look at the XPS range. So when I come and look at the XPS 13 here, I can't afford any of the models from the new version, but on the older model with a 13.3-inch screen still in that 16:9 aspect ratio, it does start at $799. So let's see what that gets us. So when we scroll down, what you're going to see here is it only has 4 gig of RAM, and this is really bad because the RAM in this laptop is actually soldered. So there's no way I would recommend this laptop. So let's move on. And then I looked at the Dell G3, which is a gaming-edge laptop. Now, this laptop does have that more powerful processor, the i5-9300H, but it does have a WVA type display, which is not IPS. So this worries me that the colors it just won't pop as much and it won't have as good viewing angles. So let's move on from that one. On to Apple. Now, I did scan Apple's website and I couldn't find any laptop on Apple's website within the price range that we have here. So then I opened up Apple Insider, which has an excellent buying guide. And what they do here is have prices for some of the older laptops. So if we look at, say, a MacBook Air from 2017, can we afford that? And what you're going to see here, $749 on Amazon. So I took a look at the one from Amazon, but when we look at this particular model, firstly, it's only got 128 gig of storage, and secondly, the screen in this laptop just really isn't good enough. It's low resolution and it's a TN panel, which means the colors just aren't crisp. It's not a good panel, so I really wouldn't recommend this laptop in 2020. Let's move on to the next laptop. Now we're into Lenovo's. There is lots of Lenovo's in this price range. I took a look at many of them. The ThinkPad E595, which has the Ryzen 3 3200U CPU, it only has 4 gig of RAM and a 1 terabyte hard drive. So even though it's $629, it's just too heavy at 4.7 pounds. The screen isn't bright at 250 nits, so let's move on from that one. Then I took at Lenovo's ThinkPad E14, the i3-10110U processor. And this one, again, only 220 nits of brightness, so there's no way I would recommend this one. I mean, these are seriously very, very dim screens. You can really struggle to see things on them. So then I had a look at Lenovo's E15, the 15-inch version, also that i3 processor, 500 gig hard drive, but again, look at the brightness, 250 nits. These are just too dim to be recommended. And finally, I got to Lenovo C740. Now, this particular one, when I pull it up here, this one actually looks pretty good. It starts at $769 for the 14-inch version, which is right within our price range. And as I scroll down, you'll see that for just $10 more, you can upgrade to this version, which has the i7-10510U, which is still 4 cores and 8 threads, but supposedly is a little bit faster. But what's cool about that $10 upgrade is you're moving from a 256 gig SSD to a 512. This also has 8 gig of RAM, which is good, but when you look at the screen, it's a 14-inch version, 1920 by 1080, it's IPS, and it has 300 nits of brightness. So this here definitely meets our criteria, which is really good. So then I took a little bit of a deeper look at this laptop because this one looks pretty interesting. And when I read the reviews on Notebook Check here, what you can see is the average brightness is actually 314 and the maximum is 329, which is decent. It really is. And what you can see, Lisa on her channel, Mobile Tech Reviews, also reviewed this laptop and found it had 310 nits of brightness. So this one seems really reasonable. The next one is the C740, the 15-inch version. Now, I did take a look at that one. So here it is here, the 15-inch version of the C740, and it is within our price range. But when I looked at the reviews, people said the screen isn't as bright. So I'd probably advise you to get the 14-inch version for that brighter screen. Now, moving on, we've got this Lenovo Flex 14, which I found here on Amazon. This one is very well reviewed. It has the Ryzen 5 3500U processor, which still should be fine. It has 12 gig of RAM, which is pretty good, and a 256 gig SSD. And when I looked at reviews of this laptop, which you can see here, it has brightness of 271 nits, which is pretty decent. It doesn't quite hit that 300 nit mark, but still it's pretty good, and it does have an IPS panel, I believe. So it gets a marking in green as well, which is good. Now let's take a look at the Flex 15, the 15-inch version of it. And what I found here, which is really interesting, is it's available on the Microsoft Store, but when I delved into the reviews on Notebook Check, I mean, look at the brightness here. This is terrible, 185 nits. I mean, you're not going to see much on this at all. So just like the C740, I would recommend if you're going to buy this laptop, you go for the 14-inch version. Let's now take a look at the IdeaPad S340. So this one is available at Walmart. And in my notes here, let's have a look what I wrote. Yes, this one has a very low resolution screen. So this has the same problem that initial Dell did, the 3000 series, where the screen just is really, really bad. I mean, have a look at the resolution here, 1366 by 768. I mean, that's just a flat out no. So now let's look at the 14-inch version of the S340. And this one here, I did notice it's 3.5 pounds for a 14-inch version, which is really, really heavy. But when I hop over to Notebook Check, you can see that it's actually only got an average brightness of 249. So again, it's a very dim panel, so I would avoid it. And now we're moving on to the S540, and this is from the series above, which I found on Lenovo's side. And what you're going to see here is this one is $819, but it's so close to our price range, I'm still going to include it. Now, it does say 300 nits of brightness with that 1920 by 1080 IPS screen. But when I take a look at a review that I found of it here, it straight away says rather dim and washed out panel. So again, this is a really bad screen, so I would avoid it. Now, this one does open up questions because if it's being advertised at 300 nits of brightness, a lot of times the manufacturers are claiming this level of brightness, but it doesn't quite reach that amount. So unless it's been verified like the C740, I am a little bit worried about this other one in green here from Dell because this is what they're claiming it to be, but we don't know for sure just yet. So right now, the only one I really feel comfortable about buying is probably the Lenovo C740 because it meets all the criteria and we know that the panel is bright enough. Let's move on to Asus, and I did find quite a few Asus laptops in our price range. The first one on Best Buy, but when I took a look at the reviews, even though it's for such a good price, they do say it's a TN panel, so I don't expect it to be a very good display again. I know I keep harping on about displays right now, but honestly, that's where these manufacturers really cheap out at these budget laptops, so I'm trying to find you a good display. Let's move on again to the next one on the list. So this is the VivoBook F512DFA. Now, I did find this one on Newegg, and when I took a look at some of the comments, people did say it's not an IPS panel. So again, a problem with the display. Let's move on to the Asus Zenbook 14, and the Zenbooks are generally pretty good laptops. This one I found at Newegg for $799. It has a 14-inch Full HD display, which means it's 1920 by 1080. It's got AMD's Ryzen 7 3700U processor. It's got 8GB of RAM, a really good amount of storage with 512GB, and the reviews are pretty good. So I was really interested in this one. But when I delved in a little deeper, people do again complain the display is a little bit dim. So I haven't marked this one in green, but if you really want me to review it, post it in the comments below. Let's move on. The Asus Q4O60A. So this one I found at Best Buy for $699. So it looks pretty good. 8GB of memory, AMD Ryzen 5, 256GB SSD, 14-inch screen. But when I did read the questions and answers, it does seem like it's a TN panel, so the display won't be very good on this one. The next one is the Asus VivoBook S15, which I also found at Best Buy. So let's take a look at this one. This is $100 more for $799. It has an Intel Core i5, 8GB of memory, really good amount of storage with 512GB. Now, what worried me about this one was I was unsure if it was an IPS panel. And I know, again, I'm harping on about the screens, but I really want to get you guys with a good screen. So I just couldn't recommend it. But if you guys want me to review this one, I'm happy to get it in. Post your vote for this one in the comments below. Moving along, I found the Acer Nitro 7 at B&H. I put in the same criteria there, and take a look at this laptop. It's only $779, which is a really good price. And why it's a really good price is it has a 6-core 12-thread processor, the Core i7-9750H. This is a really powerful CPU. It's got 8GB of RAM and a 512GB SSD, so plenty of storage. What's also cool about this laptop is it has an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1650. So this will be absolutely fine for playing some casual games. It has a 1920 by 1080 IPS panel as well. So this one actually looks pretty good. The only thing that I was a little bit worried about this one is it is quite heavy. This is 5.5 pounds, but other than that, it looks pretty good. So this wouldn't be a laptop I would recommend for someone who wants a lot of portability. So the next one I found at Best Buy, which is the Acer Nitro 5. This one here has a Core i5 CPU. It's the 9300H. It's 4 cores and 8 threads. So you're saving $30 from the higher end B&H model, but you're losing 2 cores and 4 threads. So I really wouldn't recommend this laptop. Plus the storage option isn't as good here. You got a 1TB hard drive and a 128GB SSD. So I'm going to scrap this model. I would recommend the Acer Nitro 7, and that's why I put it in green. And finally, let's talk about HP. And I did take a really good look at tons of HP laptops, but on HP's own site, they just don't list the brightness of their displays, which really worries me because a lot of people are complaining in the reviews that the screens are pretty dim and quite bad. And I tried one firsthand. I used the Pavilion 15T, a friend of mine bought it, and the screen was so washed out and dim, it was a completely garbage TN panel. So since I don't know what panels these are using, I just can't recommend them. That was a lot of laptops to look through, and I'm pretty spent for today. We made solid progress and have substantially narrowed down the list from a whopping 30 laptops to 4 that I feel are eligible, which is great. At this point, pre-me ordering in the laptops and reviewing, the Lenovo C740 looks to be in the lead. Unless you are a gamer, then the Acer Nitro 7 would be worth consideration. Anyway, get voting by posting in the comments below. I don't mind if you vote for laptops that aren't one of these 4. If I get enough votes for them, I will certainly consider them. Also, if I missed any laptop that you think I should have considered, post it in the comments below as well. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you're informed when the next video in this series drops. Till next time, I'll catch you later.